Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shavi Zain, and I'm coming on to bring a message for the chosen seed. Now, this message may not be for everybody, it may not resonate with everyone, but just know that as a chosen seed, for those of you who this does resonate with, you are likely the sacrifice of your family. Now, if you find that this message resonates in any way, please be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment below so that others can understand the journey. Many of you were the sacrifice of your family, but you was divinely protected from the very beginning. Like you've always had angels that surrounded you, knowing that this journey that you was getting ready to embark on will be a very tough one and that there will be a lot of opposition. And so your spiritual team has always been on guard and in place to look out for you and to ensure that a lot of the things that was meant to take you out of here would not be successful. Many of you had close relatives, loved ones, spouses, in-laws, people that were in your circle who was actually affiliated with cults, people who called themselves having high-ranking positions in certain cults, and they performed rituals in order to create power, to maintain power, to build wealth, to maintain wealth. And the higher up in ranking they got, the more sacrifices they had to make. These people understood that in order to maintain this position, they would have to make some very hard choices. But a lot of these people, their desire to have power and abundance superseded their love for you. Many of them, their hearts had grown very cold, and the only thing that they cared about was the rituals and the societies that they had taken oaths with. And so you came in as the chosen seed, and many of them understood that you would be up for sacrifice largely because of who you are. The spiritual nature of these people recognized that you came in with a divine assignment. And so the wickedness in their heart would allow them to be the perfect pawn to try to take you up out of here. And so many of you had, family members, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, husbands, wives, people that were in your intimate circle who knew you well, that had either joined these cults or really wanted a position in these cults. And so they were very willing to make the necessary sacrifices to take you up out of here. They were happy to be used as pawns to create havoc for you, all for the sake of being able to join into this group, this cult. You came into this world a very special and unique being. You had a lot of light around you. There was just something special about your energy. You stood out. And outside of that, your natal chart spoke a lot too. Many of these people that were a part of these cults understood how to read your natal chart. They understood your destiny. They knew who you were destined to become. And so it was not an uncommon thing for them to consult with high priestess and to do rituals, spell work, dark magic, and things like that towards you from a very young age, because it was all about preparation. It was all about preparing you to be the ultimate sacrifice. And so you might have gone through a whole lot since you were a young child, but you always had this bright energy, this beautiful energy. In spite of what you dealt with, you always had a loving heart. And so you did not lose your integrity in spite of what you dealt with, but you was a target from a very, very young age, because their position in these cults, it meant everything to them. It doesn't matter that you was their family member. It doesn't matter if you was their son or their daughter or their niece or nephew, grandson, grandchild. It does not matter that you was their sister or brother. It was all about positions, ranking. And so they recognized that someone would have to be the sacrifice, and most certainly it was not going to be them. And so they shook hands. They made deals with the devil. They made deals to take your soul, to sell your soul, and to make you the next sacrifice so that they can move up in ranking. And they was happy to do it, because power meant everything. It was all about their ego. These was very wicked people here who did not care. The agenda from the very beginning was to set you up, and there was many people surrounding you who understood this. They knew this. And so there was a lot of things that was done in terms of paying others, paying people to work against you, paying people to do rituals against you, paying people to either watch you or to tell lies on you, to make false reports against you, to say that you was mentally ill, to say that you had addictions. They spent a whole lot of money. They spent a lot of money to try to work up against you because they felt that the payout would be far more valuable than what they were spending at that time. But they didn't realize just how protected you were. And it's likely because you were still in a sleep state. Some of the things that they sent towards you was actually effective. They paid out every time, they would do a pulse check and check in and see how was it affecting you. And if they felt like, okay, this person is going through this type of trial, this person is going through this type of situation. All right, let's pay again and see what else we can get, because it was all about bringing you down to your lowest. In order to be the sacrificial lamb, you have to be a willing sacrifice. It's almost like you are at your lowest point to where there's no fight left in you. That's how they're able to sacrifice. And so, of course, the spell work and the rituals that they would pay people to do against you was to affect you mentally. It was to affect you spiritually, emotionally, financially, to hit you in every area of your life so that your vibrations would remain low. And as long as you remained in a low vibrational state, it would be easier for them to put you up for sacrifice, or to make you take yourself up out of here, or to cause situations where they could siphon your energy, where they could siphon your spiritual gifts, where they could try and take your inheritance. It was all a part of the agenda. And so you had a lot of people who was willing to do this for the sake of money and power. Okay. But you dealt with some things, okay? You might have felt these hits. Your spiritual team, although they were protecting you, you felt some of these. You went through the dark night of the soul while you was going through a lot of these spiritual attacks and the spiritual warfare. And a lot of times you didn't understand what was going on. You asked a lot of questions like, why is this happening to me? Why am I taking all of these losses? Why am I feeling emotional or depression or whatever it is that you was going through? You took a lot of emotional hits at that time and you didn't understand what this energy was all about. You might have even found that you had to cry alone because people began to turn against you. Those same people that was working up against you as pawns, they started to turn against you, and they didn't care to be that shoulder to cry on. And so you had to turn within. And even though it hurt, you had a lot of nights where it hurt and it was painful and you just had so many questions without any answers. But you still maintained. In spite of these things, you still maintained. You still did what was necessary to overcome, but it was hard. It was a long period of going uphill, just one hit after the next and after the next. And some of you even considered no longer pushing forward because you didn't see the point in it. You didn't understand what you were supposed to do next. I mean, they was coming at you hard with this energy, okay? They was sending many daggers. But you began to pray. In spite of your pain and how much you was going through, you started to call out to the Most High. You started to ask those very vital questions, and you started to seek those answers, and you sat in your own energy. You knew you had to isolate yourself. You knew you had to go within to really figure some things out, because this pushed you into a position of self-evaluation. It forced you into a position where you knew you had to figure out what was happening within you, to where everything around you was in so much chaos. What was going on within you? And the more that you prayed and the more that you asked for clarity, the more that the answers began to come through. And so you started to face your own demons. You started to recognize that some of these things and some of these people that you allowed to remain in your life was only there because you had not done the work to clear codependencies. emotional codependency, financial codependency, insecurities that you had, fears that you had of being alone. You had to go within and to really recognize these things. And it was painful to see how many people had worked up against you. You know, there was some days where you didn't know where you was going to get your next meal from. You know, it was financially hard because they was hitting you in every area of your life. So there was many times where you had to wonder, where was you going to get your next meal? Or how was you going to pay your rent the next month? Or how was you going to feed your children? How were you going to get back and forth where you needed to go? It wasn't easy going through these things, but the Most High made sure that you never went hungry. The Most High made sure that everything that you needed, you had, even if you didn't know where it was going to come from. The Most High always found a way to send a ram in a bush or an angel in disguise to bless you in ways that you just did not anticipate, because you always prayed and you never went into the energy of blaming the Most High. Instead, you asked questions, but you didn't blame the Most High. There was these people that was doing this against you, they laughed about this. They thought it was funny that they was hurting you. They thought it was funny, and they thought that they was getting away with something. You know, they had no conscience. It did not weigh on their conscience at all, because they really believed, like, you know, I'm moving up. They thought they was moving on up like the Jeffersons. They thought that money was getting ready to be great. They was getting ready to receive this position of authority and this position of power. And that's the only thing that they cared about. So in spite of your pain, these people was laughing at your pain. They looked in a mirror every day, and they felt no shame, no guilt, no remorse for what they knew you was going through. Because for them, in their minds, they felt that your sacrifice was well worth it, because that would mean that now they could shake hands with the big leagues. Now they could move up in ranking. Now they could finally receive that position of power that they have been craving for so long. Regardless of what they had to do, they was willing to do it. They was willing to do it. It did not matter. They was willing to set you up at all cost. But the Most High started giving you gifts. The Most High started to grant you visions and dreams, and, you know, your spiritual gifts began to awaken, and you started to see things in your dream state. For some of you, if you had not dreamt in a long time, you found that your dreams began to become amplified, and you didn't like what you were seeing. For some of you, you saw these people in your dreams working up against you and sending spell work against you and trying to do wicked things against you. It was revealed to you in your dream state. And your spiritual team, your angels, your ancestors always surrounded you. They always watched over you. So once you started to see the things that these people was doing behind the scenes and how they was really in wickedness, like you saw them, you know, and not on top of that, even in the physical realm, you started to see these people were just, they always tried to work up against you or gang up against you or cause problems for you. And it was like, well, what is going on here? You never understood why everybody was shifting and all of a sudden turning against you. But consider, behind the scenes, they was also beginning to turn against each other, because you were starting to awaken. And once you isolated yourself, it was putting you in a position of protection from these people. They started to see that you was no longer codependent on their energy. And even though it hurt for you to remove yourself from these people, your isolation was one of the most necessary parts of your journey. So they started paying more people. All right, we got to spend more money because something is not working. They started to feel resistance when it came to their spell work, because, see, initially it was working. You was stressed out. You was depressed. You was calling them. You was crying. You was, you know, in your feelings, and they could see that you were going through things. They saw the spell work and the stumbling blocks that they were sending against you was working. They saw that the rituals that they was paying people to do against you was actually effective. But once you withdrew your energy, the witches and the warlocks that worked up against you were starting to have a hard time with the spell work that used to work easily with no problem before. You were starting to awaken to the fact that you're a chosen seed. You were starting to do your spiritual baths, you know, working with your crystals, lighting your candles, putting up your altar, meditating, balancing your energy. Like, you started to realize, like, hey, I got to do some work on myself. And you had no idea. Even though you had dreams that were showing you things, you still had no idea the things that people was doing against you. But that was not your main focus. Your main priority was to heal. Your main priority was to become the better version of yourself, to step into your divinity, to clear and to cleanse and to purge any and everything that could have been going on within you that would contribute to the situations that you was experiencing in your external life. And so these things that you begin to do for yourself were not in vain. They was actually strengthening you, and it was opening your third eye, opening your spiritual eyes, balancing out your chakras. Like all of these things that you were doing, it was part of your journey. These people had no idea that they had became the catalyst to your growth. The work that they was doing against you became the catalyst to your awakening. And so you made sure that you did the work to clear your energy, to balance yourself. You did start to look at people very differently, though. The more spiritual work you did for yourself, the more that you recognize, like, hey, something ain't right. Some of you started to dive in to read cards and to really step into your spiritual path. If you have a divine calling to do spiritual work, many of you begin to pour your focus and your energy into really nurturing that gift, awakening those gifts. But you also begin to realize that, hey, this is a way where you can ask all the questions necessary. For some of you, you started pulling cards on these people. What is this person's intentions? Why am I having dreams about this person? Why suddenly is this cousin turning against me? Why suddenly is this sister starting to act funny against me? Why am I starting to feel this funny energy when I go around my aunt or my in-laws? What is this energy? You started to ask a lot of very vital questions, and you started to get some very straightforward and direct answers. So people that was paying folks to work up against you, they started to realize money was running a little slow there. They started to get angry that when they would go and try to make those withdrawals to pay people to do more work against you, because they started to see that things wasn't working, money was looking a little short. Because now they could no longer siphon your energy and use your fears to increase their revenue. See, these people was high ranking when it comes to understanding how to manifest and how to do it in a very wicked and low vibrational way, taking shortcuts in order to manifest abundance and power for themselves. And even though they tried to cause illness towards you, these things begin to backfire. That spell work they was doing was supposed to take you up out of here, or it was supposed to cause mental illness, addictions, physical illness. But they started to realize these things was beginning to happen to people that they actually love. Or for some of them, it was actually causing illness for them, literal illness for them. And so they had to think about this thing, like they're losing money, their health is going bad, their loved ones are starting to, drop like flies. Things just ain't working out right. But it still didn't humble them down, though. They started to try to conjure up ways. Okay, what can we do? But realizing that, hey, they didn't realize who was going to be the next person to drop off the face of the earth, because too many people that came together to work up against you were starting to lose lives. And so these people begin to go through it. They started to become fearful of you, wondering, are you over there doing spell work? They started to blame you for doing spell work against them when you wasn't even thinking about doing anything like that towards these people. It's not even in your nature. The only thing you was focused on was becoming the best version of yourself. These people literally did this to themselves. The moment that you healed was the moment that the spell work began to boomerang back onto them. And so it caused massive judgment over their heads, because they was willing to do anything to get into this position of power. And so they started to realize, like, hey, they might not be as powerful as they thought they were. Maybe the people that they wanted to rub shoulders with weren't as powerful as they thought they were. They started pointing fingers at each other. Like, hey, you didn't do this right. You should have done this. You should have done that. Trying to figure out who was going to be the next one in line to drop like a fly, or who was going to be the next one in line to take losses, because they recognized that they were in trouble. And they realized that they couldn't even help each other, regardless of how many of them gathered to try to work up against you. It didn't matter how many they pulled into their circle. They didn't possess enough power or strength to take you up out of here. So they begin to become angry towards one another because now they're starting to question, well, hey, are you working up against me? Now they're starting to question who's on what team. When in fact, all of them was always working up against one another from the very beginning. Some of these people are going to go to prison. Some of these people found themselves behind prison bars for other things that might not even had much to do with you. But this was their karma. Imprisonment. Entrapped. Some of them even in their own minds, imprisoned within their own minds. This was their karma. See, spiritual judgment had to take place. Many of them was going to spiritual court where they was being judged by the Most High and your spiritual team, because justice has to prevail. The scales must be balanced. You operate from a space of integrity and honor. You don't go around hurting people. Your main objective has always been to be the best version of yourself. And when you begin to heal and awaken to how you was contributing to a lot of the things that was going on in your life, you got on top of clearing that out. And so because of that, the scales must balance. You called on the highest form of righteous judgment to be casted upon the heads of your enemies. You stood before the Most High God and said, I want judgment. I want justice. And the Most High has given you just that. The Most High is sitting you back on your throne and dressing you in royalty, draping you with royalty, surrounding you with your inheritance, and no one can take it from you. No one can stop you from receiving what is divinely and inherently yours. No matter how hard they tried, you now get to sit back on your throne. You had to go through a lot to get back into this space. You had to go through a lot to step into your divine masculine, your divine feminine energy. And you wear it well. You are royalty. You begin to remember who you are, what you came here to do. You're a child of the Most High God, the Most High Mother and Father. There is no lack. You begin to realize that you have everything that you need. And because you felt internally abundant, because you had done the work to know that you were rich already, the Most High began to grant you external riches in the 3D. And so people watched you level up. How is it possible? They had to ask themselves and each other, how is it possible? With all of the work that they had been doing against you since you was a child, all of the stumbling blocks that they tried to put before you since you was a baby, it still didn't work? How's that possible? But now they have to live with their regret. They have to deal with the fact that you could never be their sacrifice. You would never live in fear again because fear is no longer a part of your vocabulary. And so because it's no longer a part of who you are, these people face severe judgment. Many of them they're already in the process of being judged because they're losing in so many different areas of their life. It's not even funny. But too many people was in on this to work up against you, but now the spell work has been broken. The generational curses have been broken. You receive your inheritance, your birthright, and your sovereignty, and you will remain divinely protected for the rest of your days, you and your loved ones. So be proud of yourself for how far you've come. And understand that, yes, this journey was not easy, but it's a part of your testimony. And many of the chosen seeds out here, they need to hear your truth. It's time for you to openly speak your truth, because if they don't hear your testimony, they'll have a hard time pushing through that part of their journey, because we're all on different timelines, but experiencing very similar situations. And so openly and boldly express how you was able to overcome and what you did to overcome. Share your story with others. Give thanks to the Most High. Of course, you never stop giving thanks. Express gratitude always, because now you have generational wealth that's getting ready to flow like living water. That's my message for you all. I love you, and I'll talk to you all next time.